I just returned to the United States again after being gone for about a year and a half. So having been back now for 3 weeks, I want to talk about the cons of living in the United States. Number one is English. Being understood and understanding everything. I know that probably seems like it should be a pro, but it's actually really overwhelming. When I lived in South Korea, I could talk with my friends on the subway about anything, and as long as we talked fast and used enough slang, no one would understand anything. When I come back to the United States, of course, I have to remember that and be a little bit more cautious. When you don't understand everything, it's actually kind of a gift. It's like relaxing. Everything turns into white noise and your brain can sort of shut off. Like when I was flying from Istanbul to Denver this last time most recently, I had the hardest time falling asleep because I just heard people speaking English and I was like, oh, shut up. I'm not used to understanding everything. I couldn't sleep. When I come back to the United States and hear someone behind me speaking English, and my first instinct is to be like, oh my god, where are you from? Then I remember that everyone speaks English here, so I have to kind of catch myself from doing those kind of things. Sometimes I don't want to understand. If you're new here, I'm Nicki and I post travel stuff. I'm here to tell you about my own adventures as well as giving you tips to start your own. Number two, I forget certain aspects of culture when I come back. I always feel a little bit overwhelmed and like a foreigner in my home country. There was this one time I went to the DMV. I had gotten my wallet stolen in Budapest. There was this guy at the counter and I overheard him. The clerk was saying to the guy, oh, you can't pay with a check, you can't pay with a credit card, you have to pay with cash, but the ATM in this building is broken. You're gonna have to go to the bank across the parking lot, get cash at the ATM, and come back. So we started walking out of the building together and we were just chatting just like normal, and I was like, well, you know, we're going to the same place. Do you want to just drive together in the same car? And he was like, no, it's okay, no thank you, I'll just go in my own car. And I was like, wow, I was so awkward. People don't do that here. I'm so used to travel culture where you can make plans when you're traveling within 5 minutes of meeting someone and go to an entirely different city together. And then this guy here in the United States was like really skeptical of me just sharing a car ride 30 seconds across the parking lot. Sometimes I forget how I am supposed to act or how I'm not supposed to act inside society. Number three is packaging and products. It's always an interesting experience going to a supermarket in a new country. So coming back to the United States after being abroad, it's like a totally overwhelming experience. The supermarkets have everything. They're these huge buildings that have aisles and aisles and aisles of things. They're so overwhelming and they have everything. But there are things I got used to being abroad that you can't surprisingly find in the supermarket here. Loose leaf tea, for example. Everyone in the United States drinks tea from a bag, so that's what I did growing up. When I left the country, I of course discovered loose leaf tea, and it is so much better. It's richer. Everything about it is better. But it's actually really hard to find in the United States in the supermarket that has everything, a million different kinds of teas in bags. Another thing with packaging is that most of the time cans in other countries, no matter what, just sort of have a little tap. So you never need a can opener, you just peel it back and open it. And I know that sounds kind of silly because, you know, okay, you just use a can opener, no big deal. But when you're traveling and you're staying in Airbnbs, you don't have can openers a lot of the time. So it's so convenient when you can just easily open a can. In the United States, I guess you just have to have a can opener. The last thing I'll say about products and packaging is about beer. In other countries, you can get one beer. But in the United States, you have to get a 6-pack. If you go to the liquor store, everything is a 6-pack or a 12-pack. I just want one. The other day I was craving craft beer. I love craft beer and I just wanted to have one at home, but I just wanted one. But I had to buy 6. Since that time last week, I've had 2, and so now just like 4 cans are sitting in my refrigerator. Number 4 is the United States is very expensive. A lot of people have a misconception that it's more expensive to travel, but the reality is it is more affordable to live outside of this country. Everything costs more. To get a SIM card, and for 5 gigs, only 5 gigs, it was $35. To get 15 gigs, which was $45. I was paying in Georgia 15 lari for 15 gigs, which is like $5. And for the same thing in Italy, I think I paid around 10 US dollars. In Turkey, it was around 7 US dollars. And then there's the question of rent. I lived in Boulder about 4 or 5 years ago, and I was paying $650 before utilities in a house with 4 other people. When I lived in Miami, I had one roommate, and each of us paid $700 before all of the extra utilities, and that was affordable for Miami. I paid the least amount of rent of any of my friends. In Georgia, I paid $300 for a 2-bedroom apartment, 3 balconies, big kitchen, big living room, and that was including all utilities. Basic living in the United States is so much more expensive than anywhere else. So like I mentioned last week, I wanted to have a craft beer. A 6-pack of craft beer, I got a bottle of bitters and a Sprite. And the total of that was $26. Then as I was walking home, I was thinking, $26, that's like 75 lari. And that was like 1 week of grocery shopping for me in Georgia. I spent the same amount of money in Georgia doing an entire week of grocery shopping, and in the United States buying 6 beers, bitters, and a Sprite. When I lived in the United States, I felt I was constantly stressed out. I felt like I could never get ahead. I was always having financial anxiety. I felt like I was living paycheck to paycheck. And as soon as I moved abroad, that financial anxiety just kind of disappeared because the quality of life is so much higher because you can do more with less. Number 5, community design. So one thing that really bothers me and that's really hard for me about the United States is that there's not a community gathering center. In Italy, every neighborhood has a piazza where people gather, there's bars, there's restaurants, and same thing with a lot of other cities around the world. There's like one center, people can go for walks around with their families, they walk to work, they can ride their bike, and there's no cars. And if there are cars, it's very limited, so not that many cars can go there. Those kind of spaces create a lot of community because people are walking there. They become very comfortable and familiar, and it's huge for community building. Most places, I just walk everywhere. I don't need a car. Like, I try to live in places where I don't need to have a car. In the United States, everyone has a car. There's public transportation here where I live. Compared to the rest of the country, it's actually pretty good, but most places in the United States don't. Not to mention, we have a total lack of intercity and interstate travel. I mean, the only option is a really trashy Greyhound bus. Traveling around the United States, between cities, and within cities is incredibly difficult. Not to mention that the way that American cities are built, they are very car-focused, and cars tend to be like first-class citizens. For example, when I was living in Miami, I was riding my bicycle, and there are very few bike lanes in Miami, but this particular moment, I was actually in a bike lane. Someone was so enraged by me riding my bicycle that they actually swerved their car towards me, and they were like, "Get out of the road, you bitch! I'm just biking here." But that car was so mad that they actually circled the block, came back, swerved at me again, and threw their McDonald's trash at me. Georgia and Spain and Italy, so many places, I just walk to the supermarket. Here, where I am in the United States, the supermarket is literally like 12 minutes down the street. It doesn't feel comfortable walking there. You're just walking along like a 4-lane huge road with all this traffic passing you, so it's not like it's a comfortable walk either. So living in the United States, having a car is almost a must. It's hard to get by without transportation here. Number 6, Americans are way too polite. I know this also probably sounds like a pro, but it is exhausting being polite all the time. When I go for walks around the lake nearby or the path behind my house, everyone says, good morning, hi, how are you? I just want to walk by and listen to my podcast. I don't want to say hi to everyone. Last week I was at the supermarket and I was looking at all the lettuces because there's like a million choices. I was standing in front of the refrigerator and this woman came in front of me and opened the door and started to walk away, and then she turned around and was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to cut in front of you." Fine, you literally just did nothing wrong. I was the one in your way more than anything. Several years ago, I had come back and I was at the Boulder bookstore with my sister. There was a woman a few feet away from me looking, and I walked in front of the woman. There was plenty of space, and I just walked in front of her, and my sister was like, "Rude." And I was like, what? Like, the woman didn't say anything. What do you mean? What was rude? And she was like, no, Nikki, you're rude. You walked by that woman and you didn't even say, excuse me. And I always laugh at that because I just got so used to not having to be overly polite all the time. That's how it is here. Everyone is so polite all the time, and quite honestly, it is exhausting. Number 7, the metric system, or honestly, any way of counting anything, because the United States refuses to be like the rest of the world, which basically sends its citizens out into the world looking completely stupid, ill-prepared, and we're just left trying to figure things out because we don't count anything the way that the rest of the world does. The United States, along with Liberia and Myanmar, and actually UK, are like the only countries in the whole world that measure in miles. Why don't we just use kilometers like the rest of the world? The only reason I can really translate and understand what kilometers mean are because I ran track and cross country in high school. And I just have to think about running races in order to actually understand distance. The other thing is Fahrenheit versus Celsius. We're also pretty much the only country who thinks in Fahrenheit, because to Americans, 25 degrees is freezing. It's below freezing. Like, we don't understand that 25 degrees is like the actual perfect climate. In the United States, what we call military time is literally just time to the rest of the world. But it's definitely something else you have to train your brain to do. We just haven't been raised to think in that way. Most of the world already has an image of Americans as being stupid. This type of thing is just more fuel to the fire. It is just proving the point that Americans just don't know. We are completely ill-prepared to go into the world and understand the most basic things. Number 8, eating and restaurant culture. In the United States, eating is to eat, and you have 90 minutes to do that. As soon as your plates have been cleared, like, there's that check. Anything else I can do for you? Nope, here you go, here's the check, and you know it's time to leave. If you stay too long, sometimes they'll ask you to leave because they have to make tips. And that's the other ridiculous thing about restaurant culture and really service industry in the United States. It is the only industry that puts the burden of paying their employees onto the customer. The customer is already paying for food and tax, so why are they also paying their waitresses rent? Tipping in itself is a ridiculous part of society, and it puts a lot of people in uncomfortable situations as well. When I worked at a restaurant right before I moved to Italy, I was constantly dealing with disgusting men who were like making jokes about me giving them blowjobs, and I had to laugh and be like and then go in the back and scream. I can't say anything to them if I want to get paid. It's a really terrible system. Companies should just pay their employees well. In other countries, dining out is more of an experience. You don't feel rushed. In Italy, most restaurants are open for dinner from around 7 p.m. until 11 p.m. It's very rare that you can just walk into any restaurant and get served. You have to make a reservation. When you make a reservation, you come when the restaurant opens at 7, and then that's your table, and you stay there until the restaurant closes at 11. The restaurant culture there, particularly, is so much community-based, experience-based. It's not like trying to rush you out the door to get tips. Number 9, healthcare. I once saw a meme. If Breaking Bad was filmed in the UK, it would look like man gets cancer, man goes to the hospital, man has NHS, man gets taken care of, end of story. Like, Breaking Bad can't even happen. Healthcare is available to the masses. In the United States, no. Healthcare tends to be treated as a privilege for those who can afford it. Honestly, it's so normal, and Americans are so accustomed to this terrible healthcare system, we just sort of accept it. One health crisis can send you into debt for the rest of your life. The United States is the only country in the developed world that does not have a universal healthcare system. Healthcare should be a basic right met by your government that is enjoyed by everyone. I am appalled at the American healthcare system, the way that we have completely come to accept it and see it as normal. When I lived in Miami, for example, I had a situation where the doctor thought I had breast cancer. So when I went to go get the ultrasound with insurance, I ended up having to pay $1,200. And that's with insurance. And I had to do it again 6 months later. And in Italy, without insurance, it cost me 150 euro. Number 10, guns. Being abroad, people would often say, you know, where are you from? Oh, the United States. I never want to go there because I don't want to get shot because there's too many guns. You know, I could see where they were coming from, but I would kind of laugh and say that it's not really that bad. As I sit here today, it is that bad. It's a huge problem. The people in government are not doing anything about it. One of the reasons I don't want to live in this country and that I didn't actually want to come back, I am truly afraid of dying in a mass shooting. Just a few months ago, there was a shooting in Boulder at the King Soopers supermarket where I used to go when I was in college. That's just a shooting that happened in my hometown. There are mass shootings across the United States every single day. We are on track for having more than 5,000 mass shootings in this country in this year alone. I believe that the Second Amendment right for people to carry guns totally violates everyone else's right to health and happiness and existing. Number 11, patriots. People are so proud to be American. People are just born, and wherever they happen to be born is the nationality that they are. I just have a really hard time understanding this nationalism, being so proud of being American and saying we're the best country when all you did was be born here. What really confuses me is this sort of blind patriotism and this American ignorance. We think that we are the best country in the world and therefore cannot learn anything from other countries. From the big things to the small things, there's so much room for improvement, but because we believe we're number one, it's like we refuse to even try to be better. And in the eyes of the rest of the world, we are not what we think we are. We are not what we think everyone views us as. We are not the best country in the world, and we are being laughed at. So I recently just came back to the United States, and the last country that I was in before coming back was Turkey, a country I absolutely fell in love with, and the last city that I was in before I left was Istanbul, which is worth all the rage that everyone talks about. It is amazing. So if you want to see my love letter to Istanbul, just click here. Why not?